what percentage of gay and lesbian people say they've been the victim of homophobia in the last year? The answer is 90%.
Tracy-Ann, what do you think?
I think this is a really nasty article. It's the link that she manages to draw between Kevin McGee and Matt Lucas and this is so disgusting. She should be ashamed of herself. It's a horrible article. It's a nasty article. I don't know if it breaks any laws. I think it's interesting that the Mail changed the heading. When it was first published in the first edition, it was why there was nothing natural about Stephen Gatley's death, which they then changed to a strange, lonely and troubling death, having then had a coroner say that it was a totally natural death. So is she now saying she's a coroner as well as everything else? I don't know whether it's illegal or it breaks the law, but it's a nasty little piece.
It would be breaking the law if it was to be considered that it might drive somebody to an act of anger or violence.
I don't know whether it would do that. I think it says more about the person writing it.
Oh, I think it drove quite a lot of people to acts of anger and violence, but more towards Jan Moyer, perhaps.
Yes, I don't know whether it would incite. I don't know whether it would incite homophobia. I think, on the contrary, it says more about the paper and the fact that the paper would allow this to be published and where it's trying to drive its readership, and it buys into the sort of ideas of people that would maybe buy this newspaper and be tutting.
So I just want to know how the Mail can square its stance with something like Saxgate, because Saxgate, they've said, look, 40,000 people, tens of thousands of people have complained about this despicable piece of broadcasting on Radio 2, which came with warnings and so forth at the time of broadcast. And how do you think they can square...
Well, I can tell you what they would say. It's not what I think. I mean, obviously, I think it's bizarre. I think Jan Moyer probably, when she says she's not homophobic, she probably thinks she isn't. She doesn't quite understand what a long journey she's had to go on to connect Stephen Gatley with Kevin McGee. I mean, I was reading on thinking, what next to it? Then there was Nigel Hawthorne, he died.
Kenny Everett, I mean, you know,
how many more of them have to die before we ban it? I think what the Mail...
That actually made me squirm, because you're right.
Do you know what I mean? The one has nothing to do with the other. For God's sake, one man was suffering from depression, tragically killed himself. The other one had a pulmonary edema brought on by a heart problem. I mean, she doesn't understand how making that connection in her head is homophobic. She thinks it isn't. What the Mail would say, I'm not saying they're right, but if you put one against the other, what the Mail would probably say is that the BBC is a service funded with public money and its consumers complained, whereas the Mail is a private company offering something for sale, which is an optional purchase, and it is not their readers who complain.
Well, that's available online for free. So people, for example, Stephen Gatley fans searching out for the latest news on Stephen Gatley would be confronted with that article.
Yeah, look, it's horrific and disgusting. I wouldn't have it break any laws. I'd let anyone say anything. And I think if this sort of hideous thing happens in people's heads, I'd rather know about it than not. So, I mean, I think it's revolting. I wouldn't have printed it if I had a paper. I'm just saying the Mail could reasonably say that it printing something is not the same as the BBC broadcasting something, because it's not a public, accountable organisation in the same way.
You're right. You're right. Dominic, does that make it...
Well, I'm going to detract slightly. I mean, I agree with the connection between Kevin and Stephen Gatley. I think that's a ridiculous connection just on the basis of their sexuality. But I think Moyer called it wrong. She got it wrong, and she wrote indelibly what I think a lot of people would have thought when that story broke. Because when, be he gay or not gay, when Heath Ledger died in his hotel room, I think when celebrity from that world die from a nightclub, I think your assumptions are there'll be something untoward happening. But she wrote it when she should have waited.
The thing is that when most people make that assumption, they make it from a position of delightful ignorance. When it appears in a newspaper that's supposed to be in facts and opinion, you'd expect slightly more substance.
I think she got it wrong, and she called it wrong. When that was revealed that he died of his natural causes, I think she would have been, oh my God, I've got that wrong. Now, to apologise is to admit now that she is homophobic. I'm not so sure that she is. I think the connection is wrong, but I think for her to say, yes, I've got this wrong and I'm really sorry, all the opprobrium that will come to her...
The whole piece seems to centre around his sexuality. I mean,
what makes it homophobic is that she says, you know, just before making this bizarre connection with poor Kevin McGee...
Which is wrong, I quite agree.
Another real sadness. She's very sad about this. I mean, she's dabbing away the tears. She can barely see her computer screen, you know, for the flowing tears. Real sadness about Gatley's death is it strikes another blow to the happy ever after myth of civil partnerships.
I think she also...
These people who argue for civil partnerships, they say it makes you immortal. That's what they argued. They said if two men marry...
arguing saying that civil partnerships are the utopia is obviously nonsense. I think that's the point she's
Civil
making.
partnerships are about giving same-sex couples rights.
But, like,
the rights
marriages
of
can be a
pensions
disaster
and
as
so
well. I
forth.
think marriages can be a complete disaster as well.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I
what's
think that's the not, you know, as if there's never been a heterosexual situation where a man has been, you know, caught in bed with somebody other than his wife, while his wife is, you know, I mean, that's the thing here, and exactly the thing as she's wiping away the tears. You know, gay activists are always calling for tolerance and understanding, you know, about same-sex relationships, arguing they're just the same as heterosexual marriages. Not everyone, they say, is like George Michael. I mean, she's managing to crowbar everyone in.
This is the thing. I don't think many people who argued for civil partnership said that it would protect you against heart attacks. I don't think they made that claim. And the
or infidelity, to that matter.
OK, let's throw it open to you guys. I know there's some very strong feelings out there. Let's see what we're going to say. Kirsty.
First, we have Eileen, and she's on line 1.
Eileen, good morning.
Good morning.
So, what do you make of this article?
I think it's absolutely disgusting. Stephen was one of the top boy bands after the Beatles. He was absolutely fantastic. I lost a child, and his name was dragged through the mud like he is. I would be absolutely heartbroken, and she should be losing her job for what she said. What about the family who have to pick up the pieces after this has gone through? What about them? You know, this story will be gone in a couple of months, but the pain what their family is going through. I lost my child 9 years ago. That pain will never go away.
Well, if they got any common sense, Eileen, they won't have bought the Daily Mail. Thank you for the call. Let's have another.
Mark's on line 2.
Mark, good morning.
Hi, good morning, Matthew.
What's your take on this, then?
Yeah, well, I think we fought 2 world wars for freedom of speech.
Yeah.
And provided you don't incite hatred, I think anyone should be entitled to say what they say.
Yeah.
And, I mean, you score an own goal if you prevent people from saying what they want to say.
Mark, when someone says he didn't die of natural causes and the coroner 3 days earlier says he's died of natural causes, how do you square that with freedom of speech?
Well,
one is a true fact,
that
the other is a slur, isn't it? One is a fact, the other is a slur.
My view is it's political correctness, because if it was somebody who was heterosexual,
just on the one issue, the coroner says he died of natural causes, and the journalist 3 days later says he didn't. How do you square that?
Legitimate discussion, Matthew. It could be water in the lungs.
Discuss this with me. Discuss it with me.
We fought for the right to have freedom of speech.
Well, let's have it. Let's discuss this point. The coroner said he died of natural causes, and Jan Moyer, the journalist, 3 days later, says he didn't. How do we square that, then?
Even if she's inaccurate, we fought for freedom of speech.
We did not fight for inaccuracies. We have courts to deal with inaccuracies.
And it makes people more homophobic if you prevent them from expressing themselves. It makes them more entrenched in their views.
But if you take your view, Mark, then you're going to say that people should be able to go out there and be homophobic, they should be racist, because it's a freedom to express themselves. Freedom of expression comes with a cost, doesn't it, with a price tag. It doesn't involve your freedom to run roughshod over people's freedoms and people's rights. You have to respect those too.
Denial of freedom of expression creates homophobia, creates racism, creates anti-Islamophobia when you're prevented in a very repressive, very politically correct society to say what you feel.
Anti-Islamophobia would be a good thing, wouldn't it?
He didn't mean that. Obviously, he got that wrong. But I think had this been Ronan Keating and his wife coming home from a nightclub, and there was a third party involved, we're not sure that third party was a rent boy or a prostitute. We don't know. But I think...
So we're certainly going to assume that he was neither.
No, but I'm saying Jan Moy's article could equally have been castigating Ronan Keating.
Let's go through
I don't think it's exclusive.
The coroner is the person who deals in facts, legally established facts.
And she got it wrong.
The coroner said... It's quite difficult to get it wrong.
I didn't realise, actually, that this is written after his verdict.
Yeah, the coroner came through on Tuesday. Well, she would have submitted her article on Thursday for publication on Friday.
No, but what she's saying, let's be clear about what it is that she's actually saying. I don't think she's speculating on the forensic science behind his death. She's saying whatever it was that killed him, because it happened in a context where he'd been to a gay nightclub and when it was in his house with a husband and another man, she feels that the circumstances are unnatural. That's staggering.
Right.
The word unnatural has not been used in the context of homosexuality in a newspaper for a tremendously long time, and in a way, I salute her for having such incredibly old-fashioned prejudices. But she wasn't talking about the way that he died. She was saying because that was his lifestyle, that is what she sees as unnatural.
Right, okay.
I think that is a revolting thing to think, but if she thinks it, put it in the paper and let us say what we think back.
OK. Thank you for the call, Mark. Let's have one more before the break.
Emma thinks she should be sacked. She's on line 3.
Emma, good morning.
Good morning.
I was going to ask you what do you think should happen, but I know. You should be sacked, eh?
Yes.
There's many reasons in this country for people to be sacked, and that's one of them. The press coverage has been disgusting. And
actually, hang on, whoa. Don't tar us all with the same brush. I was reading the News of the World. I thought the coverage of the funeral was incredibly sensitive. Thanks, bye. Go and speak to Jeremy Kyle. I'm sure he's waiting for your call. Shall we go to the break?
I cried at the News of the World coverage. I was actually moved to tears
it was
by
beautifully done.
And I thought, I wonder what Jan Moore would feel if she read that. There was the bit that made me cry was about Stephen Gatley's mother had said when he was waiting in the chapel before the funeral, she couldn't bear to think of him alone there, being cold and lonely. So the other members of Boyzone, I'm going to get choked up thinking about it, went to sleep there with their sleeping bags. That's what they did for Stephen Gatley's mother. Yeah. If I were Jan Moore, I would think, what exactly did I do for Stephen Gatley's mother?
Beautifully put, Victoria, beautifully put. Thank you. Yeah, well said, thank you. After the ads.
Thank you.
After the ads, keep dads out.